Hello, everyone. And for me, it's morning, so I'm going to say good morning. And a lot of you have been tuning in the morning, so I'm going to say good morning. First of all, thank you for the feedback on the feedback forums. It was very, very helpful. I got a lot of good, honest feedback, and I think it was great. I'm going to follow the advice you gave me. I'm going to keep sort of with the same format, the same amount of work. It seems to be. Some people said it was about right from me, so I will try to keep it as similar as possible. That seemed to be working. A lot of you said you were just getting bored, and I totally get that. You guys are young and full of energy and wanting to do stuff, and it must be very difficult. So I definitely empathize with you. My advice would be do what you're doing, what some of you said you're doing. You're trying to get a routine going. You're doing stuff with brothers and sisters, trying new things. Kevin Luther, really, a little shout out to Kevin. Yours was one of the most interesting and honest and entertaining responses. If you're in contact with Kevin, ask him what he answered it was. I'm not going to say, but it was very good. He had some really good, he's doing a lot of good things, keep himself busy. Try new things, learn new things. If you've ever wanted to do something, just do it because you have the time now. That's what I'm doing, including stuff like this with you. We're going to take a little departure from our meiosis stuff. Said I had a little surprise for today, and hopefully everyone was thinking I'm delivering a pony to their house or something. Not that kind of surprise. I am still just a teacher. But you'll see here I have Google Earth pulled up. And if you are bored, this is something you can do, explore the world a little bit with Google Earth if you haven't already. And what I did was I made a little virtual field trip for us today, and just a short one to try to learn something new to do this. And if this goes well, we can continue it past what my vision was for our field trip. What we did our New York trip is definitely not happening this year, and we're still working on how to get those monies back, including also someone mentioned Comet Card. How that going to work? We have a video conference with Miss Foster today at 11:30. I'm going to bring up both of those points, the field trip and Comet Card money. So I'm going to be on that for you. But since we couldn't go to New York, I put together a Central Park field trip here. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the lower part down here today because there's a lot of cool stuff down there. And this stuff was designed later on, redesigned for families. The whole park is, if you can see, it takes a big part of Manhattan. It's 843 acres, which is a lot. Your house, if you don't know what an acre is, your house might be on a lot that's a quarter of an acre, a half acre. Maybe you have a little more land where you have an acre or two, or maybe even more. But that's 843 acres there. If you want another idea, the perimeter total up out here and around is 6.1 miles. It was designed in 1857. They had a competition. People put in different bids and for park design, and two gentlemen won the bid, and they kind of wanted it like a European park where you had people strolling along windy paths, observing nature and finding serenity in nature from the city life, which isn't a bad thing. But people wanted more than that. Their idea was that you would just stroll along and gaze out over these grassy fields and wooded areas and just think and reflect and maybe paint and write a song or poetry. And that was okay for some people, but other people was like, can we let our kids play on the grass? And they're like, no. They even had park police that would kick people off the grass because they didn't want it ruined. They had all these beautiful grass fields that people could play in, and they had big signs up that said, stay off grass, because they just wanted it pristine and pastoral and people to observe it. Well, eventually they gave in to some pressure from the people because it was a publicly funded project, and they started to redo some of this down here for families. And that's where I thought we would go today and talk about some of the things that are down here, and this would be the south end of the park. So hopefully this goes well. I set this up last night, and let's see if we can fly in a little bit here. Everybody hold on. Here we go. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to start down here, which would be the this lower corner as we zoomed in. This is called the pond. This pond wasn't originally here. It was dug out and put in there. It really is just sort of, if people were ducking into the park, they would go there and see the pond. It became really popular October of 2018 and let's see here. If I pull this up, we go down. We'll go down to the street view here. This pond became more popular. First, this bridge here, this is called the Gap-style bridge. The original one was built in 1874. It was wood with fancy wrought iron, cast iron railings, but it didn't hold up. It couldn't hold up for the winters, springs and winters. The bridge was taken down, and this new one was built in 1896. Let's come up a little bit. Now, the reason this became really popular was this duck showed up in the pond. It's a mandarin duck, and this is a male. It showed up October 2018, and it shouldn't be here. Actually, it should be, if you look at this map, this is a sort of the Asia area here, China, Russia, Japan, North Korea. It should have been over there, but it was here. So some people thought it kind of escaped from a private collector, maybe escaped from a zoo, but that pond became very popular with people taking pictures and observing this duck. It had its own Twitter page. It was all over the news. And I actually got to see the duck. It was actually a very cute duck. It would fly away to the Hudson River, and then it would come back, and then it would visit some other ponds and come back. And then around March 2019, it never came back. So either it found a new spot, or it was something happened that ducks happen. It got eaten, or it got, or just living a duck life somewhere else, but the duck's not there anymore. But that spot became very popular. And let's slide on in here. The pond was also real popular back in the day for swan boat rides. People would take these swan boats out, paddle around like little paddle boats, and get a view with here. Also, it was very popular for ice skating in the winter. Excuse me. Now, there's still ice skating that goes on, not on this pond right here, but as we go up, and you'll see right here next to the playground, this is called Wollman Rink, and that's an ice skating rink in the wintertime. Kate Wollman's family was a wealthy financial family. They owned a stock exchange in Kansas City, and she donated $600,000 to build a skating rink there that was a little better than just skating on the pond. Her nephews you've heard of, actually, H&R Block, Henry and Robert Block from H&R Block. Those are her nephews. The ice rink fell into disrepair, and then the Trump organization, because this is Trump building right over here, the Trump organization came in and revitalized the park. They're sharing in some of the profits, and then some of the profits go to charity. So right now it keeps the name Wollman Rink, but it is owned by the Trump Foundation organization. All right, so Herkshire Playground, he was a wealthy New York real estate and financial guy, and he wanted a playground. Originally, a playground was basically that, an area of ground to play. And it was designed for boys to play baseball and girls to play cricket. And you can get a good view of the playground this is called Umpire Rock. And the reason I mention that, this is the actual bedrock that comes up, and you'll see it all around Central Park. And it's about 450 million years old, and about 90% of New York City has this bedrock underneath it. It is very, very hard, very difficult to get down. When you're building those big buildings back there, you have to blast and drill through this bedrock. It makes for a great foundation. It's just very difficult to get through. But this is Herkshire Playground. There's swings and open areas. You can read over here. It was basically a meadow where kids could play. And here are the two designers, Homestead and Vow. I don't know how to say his name. But they were given permission to build this playground for the students. In the 1920s, the playground opened here, and it has a little bit more of a modern feel. Now, let me see what's next. I think, yes. So we're going to go to the next one because another popular sport at the time was. Let's see if I messed this up here by getting my table of contents up. Let me get that to go. There we go. If we spin around our baseball fields, and that's why this is called Umpire Rock, because you can see the baseball fields here. You weren't allowed to play baseball on them. This is one of the areas where they lost the signs that said, keep off of grass. But kids were allowed to start using it under adult supervision if their grades were good in school for playing. They weren't allowed to make a diamond like they have now. Parents actually stood in the shape of where the bases should be, and they made sort of like an out-of-bounds area. The parents would stand there, and hopefully they wouldn't get hit by a ball. And no adults were allowed to play until 1920. So this went a good maybe 60, 70 years with only kids being allowed to play there. But you can see lots of people playing baseball in those fields now. And this is Umpire Rock. All right, moving on. We're going to fly up a little bit. And we're going to the Central Park Carousel. And here is a picture of the inside here. And there is a carousel there, or as we like to call it, a merry-go-round. And we're going to zoom down in here. And this is what the outside looks like. Doesn't look like much on the outside. But on the inside here, you can see what the carousel looks like. It's not a big carousel, and it's not the original one. This is actually the fourth carousel that's been at this spot. And this is one of my favorite stories about Central Park. The first carousel there was built in 1871. It was one of the first vendor, you'd pay to do something in the park. And it was there up until 1924. And it was actually powered by real horses and real mules down below. So you had the fake horses up here, but down below you have another circle. And there were real horses and real mules attached to the mechanism. And they were trained that when the person upstairs tapped their foot, they would start walking in a circle. And them walking in a circle would power the carousel upstairs. And that remained up until 1924. Then it was converted to steam. There were 2 steam carousels there. Both of them burned down, hopefully with nobody riding above them. And then I believe, I'm trying to think of the year, I think it was in the 50s, they wanted a new carousel. And the current carousel, they found it out in Coney Island, which is way out on Long Island. There was a museum there, and unbeknownst to anyone, someone had stored an old carousel in this storage area of a sort of a trolley terminal, which is like where a trolley would end, a big building. Someone stored an old carousel there. They found it and brought it back to Central Park. So it is an old carousel, not the original one, but it is sort of that time period carousel, and that's the one that is there today. Okay, moving on. Where are we going next? I forget. Okay, we're going over to the Central Park Zoo, which is right over here, and we'll zoom in. And at the very center, there's an exhibit that's really popular, and that is for sea lions. And if you're there around feeding time, you can see them right over here. They start to get super active. They start to know when feeding time is. And I think they do one around lunchtime and around 3 o'clock. And you'll see the sea lions get really active. They'll start swimming around. They start jumping up this area because somehow they know the time. And that's a popular time for people to come in. They do a little feeding, and they'll explain a little about the sea lions there. Central Park has 130 different species, from snow leopards to tropical birds. So it's a small zoo. It's not very expensive, and you can do it in a couple of hours. And for zoos goes, I'm really on the fence on zoos as far goes as holding animals and capturing them and keeping them in these small areas. For a zoo itself, as you can tell, this is a pretty big area for a zoo, especially in the city. There is a lot of education there, and there's not a lot of animals tucked in a small space. So as far as zoos go, and it's a pretty good one. This is my opinion. They do have this pretty cool building, which is a tropical rainforest. Very warm and humid in there. The birds can fly around. They have several fruit bats that live up on the ceiling. And it's on a cold day, it's a real nice spot to get in there and warm up. But super warm, super humid. Hundreds of varieties of plants in here. So that's pretty cool in there. All right, coming back out. This is the current grizzly bear exhibit. There were 2 polar bears in here, which you can imagine in the summertime would get quite hot. A little controversial with the polar bears. There were 2 polar bears there. I believe their names here, Gus and Ida. Ida lived there for 25 years. Gus lived there for 27 years. They basically died of old age. They had some health complications, but they lived longer than the average polar bear in the wild, which is somewhere around 20 years. They finally passed away. But they were replaced by 2 grizzly bears, and their names, if I remember correctly, are Betty and Veronica. They were part of 3 grizzlies that were abandoned by their mother for some reason. I'm not sure where the other one went, but Betty and Veronica were the 2 girls, and they kept them together. So currently, there are 2 grizzly bears in this habitat. I did see them. Bears aren't super active. So when I saw them, they were just sleeping over there in that shade and doing their thing. So I can't fault them for that. But they are massive, huge claws. And if you get a chance to get there, check out the grizzly bear. Okay, coming on out. We're coming to the end of this part of the field trip, because the next time we're going to do the center part. We're just going to drop down here. I'll show you where we're going to start next time. Is we're going to be in Sheep Meadow. You can see there's a large grassy area. So let's just drop down in here. This is Sheep's Meadow, and as you can imagine, this area was once home to a large flock of sheep. So our next field trip, which we'll do next Friday, is talk about why you would keep the original purpose of this field here, which is massive. It's popular now, which is sunbathing and people playing frisbee and hanging out reading a book and painting and kind of the things that the original designers thought about, except you wouldn't be able to get on the grass now. Why it was designed. But we'll start our next tour here, working our way north up. We'll start in Sheep's Meadow. All right, hopefully everybody enjoyed our little virtual field trip today, and feel free to check out Google Earth, someplace you've always wanted to go. It's a really useful tool. It's free. You don't have to download anything. It's web-based. You can just go and launch it from there. All right, everybody, I'm going to work on the podcast for today. Excuse me, and I will let you know if I learn anything major from our conference with Miss Foster at 11:30. All right, bye.